I didn't realize the star wasn't in the manger scene. Like, I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Like, is this a new translation? What's going on? But it's not. It's now, that said, it's heavily implied because the three wise men say that we saw the star that's rising, and that was a sign that Christ had been born. So, and here's what I mean by saying it's not problematic. All those things are good things. They're not bad things in and of themselves. The problem becomes when we prefer what we have in our head over reality. That's a big deal because it affects how we see Jesus as a whole.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we take a deeper dive into Sunday's message and explore any questions you might have. I'm your host, AJ Stevens, joined by lead pastor Chip Parker, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of the Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops. All right, we're back, episode 51, which means if you missed episode 50, it could have been your name that we called.
But we're never going to say who it was that we called, so they'll never know.
Yeah, so
unless they actually go back and listen to it.
And if they have not come back to claim their prize, we will reopen it. Just kidding. We're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and hunt her down.
Wait, actually,
did they claim
has
it
she
yet?
claimed it
Because
yet?
I saw her
She has
today.
not.
I
she
saw
has
her
not
in
claimed it yet
today.
Why? That's the perfect way to let us know that you don't listen to the podcast. You were just trying to get a gift card.
Disgusting. Entry. We're going to take it off. No, we're not. We're going to let her have it, especially because she is doing a lot for us right now. And I was reminded by 4 texts that I got about 30 minutes ago.
Which is why I saw her in person today.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. No, she'll get it. Carla, it's you. Come get your gift card. I'll text you or something if you don't hear this. But it was a fun giveaway. Excited for 50 more episodes to come, 49 more. But today we have 4 special guests. Chip is with
I appreciate
Chip's
that.
always a special guest. 3 other special guests with us today. The Momcast crew plus Miss Erin, who also does a lot keeping our stuff straight and together here at the office.
Yeah, we're not sure exactly what Erin's title is, but she's adopted the title Hammer Jr.
I was going to say, we know her by
around the
Hammer Jr.
office. So that means that she's the one who keeps us straight, gets stuff done, and most importantly, make sure that everybody has the paycheck.
My favorite
The
part
most
of your job.
important. Yeah.
My favorite part of everything you do, Erin. Yeah, so we're going to have some fun today. We just jumped into a new series, so we'll talk about some of that. But I want to do this first because one of my favorite parts about having the moms in the room is I get to hear the stories, right? Like all the way back to, I think there was gum in the hair a couple years ago. We dislocated our shoulder, Kaci, trying to discipline our kids in the back seat. Like
Much respect for that.
I love it, right?
So much respect.
Man.
That's why you can't have that third row. Because you just can't get back there. You got to be able to get back there.
Well, unless you have like an e-collar, right? Because I saw... I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
Well,
That's a joke.
This just jump.
That's a joke.
And by the look in Casey's eyes, she's wanting to make clear she has never done that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Not yet. So here's what we'll do. We just got done with Thanksgiving, and last week we did a draft, and it was a 5 rounds, pick your favorite thing about Thanksgiving draft, or about Thanksgiving, and we kind of drafted me, Chris, and Matt. But this week, I want to do something a little different.
That was a pretty lame draft, by the way.
Oh?
Yeah.
Tell me what you would have picked, Chip.
Nobody put deviled eggs.
Yeah, that would be in this draft. The anti-draft.
Exactly.
Exactly. Look at that.
That's messed up. Nobody put Black Friday shopping.
That's not Thanksgiving. That's the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you weren't American and couldn't celebrate what you were thankful for and then go stone people to death for a cheap TV at Walmart the next day.
They don't really do that
what else?
anymore. It's all
Yeah.
online.
So that was
right.
Guys,
okay.
outdated.
So seriously, that's why it moved into the category of kind of favorite things, because you don't have to go Black Friday shopping. You can just like the whole week from last week to this week, just get on your phone and you can do all of that.
There was a day where Cyber Monday was like, oh, we got Cyber Monday coming, and now it's like the day of
It's the
Thanksgiving.
entire week.
Cyber Week, go get your
It's even
deals.
before Thanksgiving, a lot of it now.
Yeah.
Well, so they did a study this year and saw that in the months post-summer leading up to the fall, they slowly raised prices on several items so that they could put them on sale.
It's disgusting.
For Black Friday.
That's capitalism. Here's something interesting. If you're shopping at Hobby Lobby, because most moms, right, are just what it is. They're shopping at Hobby Lobby this time of year. If you go into Hobby Lobby and you look at a row of items, we were having this conversation the other day. You just pick anything and look through the row of items of the same exact item and start looking at stickers on the back. You will find at least 2 with a different price than the rest of them. And if you really want to get a good deal, start hunting through them, because you'll have one at like $7.99 and there'll be one at $2.99 just for no reason.
All right. Mary Beth's like, yes.
It's true. I've tested that.
All right. So here's my question, since we have moms in here, because Hobby Lobby is like the store where everything's always on sale, right? Like it's always, this is on sale, that's on sale. Like you never pay full price for something, it feels like, at Hobby Lobby. Are you more tempted to buy something that is 50% off than you would be if it was just half that price? You see what I'm saying?
Like normal price?
Yeah. So like if it's $20 and 50% off, does that make you more tempted to buy it if it instead of it just being like $10?
I don't really know. I'm all about a good deal, so maybe.
I feel like that's Hobby Lobby's entire business model.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I will not buy anything full price there.
No, because if it's not on sale that week, it'll be on sale the next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting,
It
right?
is interesting. Let's do this. Before we go into the draft, I would love to, because we're talking about Black Friday and all that kind of stuff. We were having this conversation too around the office, like literally earlier. How do your kids let you know what they want, right? Because when I was growing up, it was, there's a commercial and I'm going to go write it down. I'm going to put it on my list. Or we get the magazines in the mail and then we'd go circle, or not even in the mail.
Toys R Us catalog.
I was going to say, not even in the mail. We'd go to Toys R Us because we had one, and we would go to the Toys R Us and we would start taking on
Central Florida.
You
We
know?
had a Toys R Us.
Did you guys have one up here?
We had a Kmart.
We have one in Gainesville. That's the Toys R Us in Gainesville.
Yeah, but that's not Lake City.
It's not.
That's not Branford.
No, it is not.
No. Well, Orlando wasn't St. Cloud. We had to drive to Orlando to get it. I mean, but that's what we would do, right? We'd go in there and kind of look around, or we'd get it and see a commercial and, Mom, I just saw this on the TV. I need it. You know what I mean? So how are your kids letting you know now this is what I want for Christmas?
Well, I have a 15-year-old that just creates an Amazon wish list and sends me the link to it.
Incredible.
Yeah, it makes it really easy.
So we get the Amazon catalog, or like whatever, the gift guides or whatever, in the mail, and then Bass Pro will send one. So the boys will just go through and circle what they want.
Love it.
And then
Old school circle. I respect it.
Yeah.
Yep, we have to do different color markers because
Like for each person, or for like, hey, this color means it's reasonable, this color means it's outlandish.
no, but that's not a bad idea.
Okay.
One kid has one color, the other kid has a different color, so I know which one.
What color does the husband have?
No, he never wants anything, so
Okay.
that's what we do.
Cameron, if that's not true, text me.
So my kids did the same thing. We got the Amazon one, Target sends one, right?
Yeah, Target.
And Walmart sends one, I think. And they all circled. Carter, and everybody in here knows Carter, circled literally everything on every page.
You need it all.
He does. He wants it all. But they use the same color. They'll just write their initials. Yeah. Except Carter then went back through and circled things that Lila Kate should have and that Emery should also have.
So they pick for each other.
They do.
That's awesome. I would like to say, though, that you're all doing it wrong. Because if you do it correctly, you help your kids decide what they want for Christmas. You got to drop those subtle hints. You got to start early. You got to, kind of put in their mind, hey, this is the price range you're looking at. So you help them decide what they want for Christmas. That's how you got to do it.
Is this like because of the price range, or things that you subtly want to play with too, or like why?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, Adam, look at this 2024 F-150. What do you think about like that kind of
Well,
thing?
I'm just going to say for Haddon's birthday, he may have got college football 24. So
I love it. That's some good win-win right there.
also, it really doesn't work. They still pick out what they want, and it really blows your budget no matter what. So
Yeah.
Am I saying that Toys R Us opened back up after being permanently closed? Is that what I'm saying in the show notes?
kind of. So we might need the Deucer to walk over here and inform us because he's Googling everything. But so Toys R Us permanently closed, right? But then not long ago, they opened back up a Toys R Us section in some department stores, I think. What department stores, Chris? Say it again. Macy's? Nice. So there's some Macy's that have a Toys R Us section.
gosh, there was nothing like walking into a Toys R Us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just like, what do you want? There's a million things in here, and you can go to the video game section, you can go to the Lego section, you can go to the Connect section, you can go to the action figure section. It's
okay,
like,
there you go.
You know what I mean?
All the things to build things with, they're in the same section.
Oh gosh, nostalgia.
I've got an epic Toys R Us story though.
Me too.
When I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old, we lived right next to my great-grandparents. And my great-grandpa that we lived right next to was like an old-school Cajun handyman is what he did for his living. You know, never had a lot of money, always, you know, fixing up stuff that was broke. And his favorite thing to do was to go dumpster diving. Like, because we live right down from the dumping area. And so he would like literally have a pole and go pull stuff that he could fix out of the dumpster.
I respect that.
One of the things that he pulled out of the dumpster and fixed for me was one of those big yellow metal Tonka truck.
The metal
trucks,
ones were...
Right, like the metal ones.
Yeah.
So I played with it all the time. Well, my grandma, not his daughter, but my dad's mom, took me to Toys R Us one time in Tallahassee when me and my cousin were up there. And they were like, oh, you know, you guys just pick out whatever you want in the store. You can have it. And, you know, just kind of walking around. And she says that, well, I know, at 5, you're not gaming the system at 5. Well, I don't think I was gaming the system at 5. But my grandpa, who was with her, tried to show her a big yellow Tonka truck. And my grandma on the other side of the store with my other cousin says you could hear me in Toys R Us go, I don't need one of those. Grandpa Burris got me one of them from the dump, you know, and said she was absolutely mortified. Let's leave Toys R Us now.
I love it. That's phenomenal. Yeah, my story is not nearly as, I guess, crawling a hole as that one. Actually, it kind of is. So, Dustin Pedroia, Johnny Damon, 2 guys that play for the Boston Red Sox, they were doing like a go buy a bunch of presents for kids in need Christmas, and they're at Toys R Us when my dad's in there, and he walks up to Johnny Damon, and he's like, I know this guy. Like, I recognize him from somewhere, and it occurs to him who he is. And so he runs up to me and goes, oh, you're Matt Damien, and just completely calls him the wrong thing, goes out to the truck, gets a baseball from the truck that I had, like, you know, they keep like a little home run ball in the glove box, like flex, and he went in there and took it to him. The guy signed it.
Did he sign it, Matt Damon?
He did not. He signed it.
That would have been electric if he would have signed it.
But
Matt
it would.
Damon.
He was so funny. He's like, there's a short little guy with him. I didn't recognize him, but I recognized Johnny. So, Dustin Pedroia, if you ever listen to this, my dad thinks you're a short little guy. All right. So we have, let's jump into this draft, because it's going to be like an anti-draft. Okay. So last week, what are your 5 favorite things about Thanksgiving? Today, I want to hear your three rounds of your least favorite things about the holidays in general. So we can go with things that have already happened, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, anything's on the table all the way through the new year. 3 of your least favorite things about the holiday. Anybody want to go first? Feel pretty confident in their first round draft pick.
Whoever says deviled eggs is fired.
Okay, go ahead.
I've got one, because this is the only one that like immediately jumped to my mind, and it's because I got the notification through Parent Square yesterday. The school dress up days, dress up week. It just is like one more thing to add to my list to think of and make sure that it's planned out and ready for. And I can't stand it. The kids like it. They have fun, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, it's a good pick, which means we're going this way. So, Kaci?
So about any holiday or like any Thanksgiving, Christmas. Okay. I would say like the Christmas parties. They're like always on the weekends.
Yes.
And it's always,
Such an introvert.
AJ can probably like relate to this. It's always during hunting season.
Amen.
So,
However, AJ's never met a party he didn't go to.
There's always a tension for me there. Honest to God, it'll depend on like, all right, is this worth it?
yeah.
Is this worth it to me?
And then you get the notification that the Bucks walk through whenever you could have been sitting, but you have to go to the Christmas party. So
She's making me hate Christmas parties even more right now.
that would be fine.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners, to be honest. Mine's probably just traveling all over the place, right? Because you got all these different family members and you're trying to appease everybody and be present, and I got to go over there and I got to go over here and I got to go see this part of the family, and just that, it drives me bonkers. That would be my first round draft pick for the anti-holiday draft for sure.
So I think that's good. I will tell you, you don't have to do that. There's freedom that comes with the times when you don't do that. However, if you're going to go see any family, that's my pick, it's traffic.
Do you not have to? Because my parents still do that. Like, and it drives my family, it drives my mom nuts they wake up and it's like, all right, here we got this, and then we got to go, before my grandmother passed away, we got to go by grandma's house, and then we got to go to my dad's sister's house, and then we're going to go to my sister's house, and then the day is just like we blink and the sun's going down, and you're sitting on the couch.
You don't have to. I mean, take that with a grain of salt, because I'm like the black sheep of both sides of my family. But you don't have to.
There just might be consequences if you don't. All right, fair enough. Noted.
But traffic
in the middle of all
just interstate traffic specifically. Like, there's nothing that gives me road rage worse than getting backed up on the interstate with some cat that's driving 62 miles an hour in the left lane and has the whole thing backed up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good pick. We actually traveled on Christmas, and that was like the least traffic going the day of. So pro tip, if you're going to travel.
Like Christmas, like last year or
last year?
Okay.
Yeah. Christmas Day. Yeah.
So I'm going to be like super Debbie Downer right now. I'd say, because in our situation, we are a blended family. And so I think the thing I hate the most about the holidays is having to share our kids, because
that's fair.
We've got to share with the other parent, and especially because our youngest is up in North Carolina. So it's really difficult sometimes, because there's a lot that he can't be here with us. So, and at the holidays, you want your crew together. You want everybody to be together, but you have to share. So that's probably...
Yeah, that does stink. That's probably a tension on both ends of the spectrum, right? Because you're probably both saying the same thing. And so you just gotta...
Absolutely. We all want our kids with us on the holidays. So, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, not a good one. It's a bad one. It's a good bad one. Mary Beth, you got another second round? Only got 3.
Really, I got to think about it, because I really do like a lot.
She likes everything. Smiling's her favorite.
It is.
Yeah, bouncing it up over here.
Man, well, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but just the amount of tabs I have open in my brain this time of year, between home, work, gift buying, school schedules, what needs to be sent in for what class party, for which kid, all of that. Making sure everybody on my gift buying list has an appropriate gift purchased for them on time. Probably
appropriate gift makes me feel like we need to all watch the Sheldon reciprocal gift giving guy for the Big Bang Theory.
Right. You do have to kind of you got to think that through.
You don't want to be the one who overshoots or undershoots. It just gets awkward.
So that's your pick, just not knowing what to get somebody.
No.
Because there was like 4 picks in there. I think you just went like 7 rounds.
Well, it's because it's cumulative. The amount of tabs that are open in my brain at the same time this time of year is, I feel like I can't give all of my focus to each thing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, it's good. All right, Kaci, round 2 here. What's your second pick?
I would say having to make sure each kid has the same amount of gifts whenever it comes down to the time, and remembering what you bought, because I'm not a person that buys things ahead of time. We kind of wait until it gets a little bit closer to get the gifts. So or tell Santa.
Me and Kaci we kind of vibe over here.
So
on the same page.
I'm not one that buys in advance, so that way I don't forget what I have. But just making sure okay, we got this one, this one, that, and then the stockings, make sure did I get stuff to put in their stockings? Do they have equal amount of gifts to open? I think just that, because that part is so stressful. And then on top of having to buy your in-laws presents and your grandma presents and all these people, your teachers presents. And then as they get older, you have to buy more than one teacher a gift. And so on top of getting things for their class party, buying all that kind of stuff. So I think that's just a little bit stressful.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think the present dynamic seems to be consistent, because that would have been mine. I don't know what to get. I hate giving gifts because you don't ever know what the expectations are. And I also hate getting gifts in public, because I don't ever want the energy with which I received the gift to not be up to the expectations that the person had when they gave it to me. So I feel that. But for me, round 2 would probably be just the awkward family dynamics. You're there because you're running the hustle and bustle for us anyway, and then you gotta sound awful, but you gotta kind of politic your way around. Oh yeah, how's your mom and them? What's going on? And you're just kind of, it's dead. I'm just reaching. You know what I mean? I'm pulling stuff out of thin air to keep the conversation going, and that just becomes mentally exhausting. It goes from an evening where you wanted to chill out to now I'm mentally exhausted because I'm trying to bebop around this entire room and all these different families and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I thought you were going to steal mine there. My second round pick is a little bit of a sleeper.
Okay.
But everybody hates it. That's expectations. Like, you just get in your head what all this is supposed to be and what it's, and then it's like, did it live up to it? And it never feels like it quite lives up to it. And then even if it does live up to it, as soon as it's over, there's a massive dopamine drainage from your body and you're just like miserable afterwards. Yep. And so just kind of the whole expectation, we get our trees up, in the end of August for some people because they don't want to miss the magic of the moment. Well, I don't know. I just think there's so much expectation around it. It kind of kills it all sometimes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Absolutely. So this one's kind of like a love-hate, okay? Because your girl likes to eat, right?
Sure.
But this time of year, the amount of like good treats and everything, and like I love working at the church office, and everybody brings in some of like the best goodies into this office. That? No, probably not.
Did
because
you know that people bring in goodies?
Yeah,
they're not even making it to the world.
Listen,
oh my God!
Listen, if the Miners peanut brittle gets here,
first I'm hearing about
it doesn't leave my office, and that's a problem. Okay, so I think it's like a love hate.
You're hearing this banana pudding cookies?
No, peanut brittle.
The peanut brittle. Good. The banana pudding cookies are good too.
Yeah,
cookies.
But it's like, so that's like a love. I don't totally hate it. Like, I love it, but I hate it at the same time because I know I'm going to eat it, and I know at the end of the holidays I'm like a pant size bigger. So yeah,
fair enough. Mary Beth, do you have a third round pick, or are you just like dying for us to quit with 2?
I do. I don't really know what to call it, but it kind of goes along with what Chip was saying. But just everybody's need, or they feel like they need to do all the things for Christmas, like you got to have Elf on the Shelf. You got to make sure you go see Christmas lights. You got to make sure you go.
Y'all are always hitting around my next round pick because the last round pick is the freaking Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. You got to feel like you got to go see Christmas lights. You got to go see Santa, take pictures with Santa. You got to, I don't know. It just feels like there's so many things that people feel like they have to do, but it ends up stressing everybody out, and you don't actually have to do all those things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just watching people put too much emphasis on kind of the wrong things.
Yeah.
Which I'm guilty of doing sometimes too.
Absolutely. It's just hilarious because most of our holiday movies, like the plot is, look at all these people putting their attention in the wrong direction, and we sit on our couches watching these movies about everything that we're doing in the entire holidays, and it doesn't move our needle at all. So, Kaci?
I don't know. It's kind of probably already has been talked about, but just coming from a blended family, like having parents that were divorced and then being married to someone whose parents are divorced, like just having to split that time between so many different people, I feel like is just really stressful during the holidays. And then having to so on Christmas Eve, we started this thing with Cameron's mom whenever we were dating before we had kids, that we'd go over there on Christmas Eve and like do Christmas Eve with them and do dinner, things like that. And then Christmas morning, we would have whatever, like we would just be able to do our own thing together. Well, now, since we have kids, it's like Christmas Eve, we spend that time over there, and then we have to rush home to get things ready for Christmas morning with the boys. And then once we had kids, we got it to where we would have people, like our family, come over to do breakfast the next day and watch the boys open presents. And so like having to hurry up and rush home to get that stuff ready for the next day, and then having to wake up super early to prepare breakfast for everyone. I feel like that's really stressful, just having to split all that time between 4 different families.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that goes along with the expectation thing. Like, it's just hard. Like, you're not going to make everybody happy, and it's so hard because somebody's going to make a comment about it inevitably. I feel like in our situation at some point, like somebody's going to make that little like subtle back in, like, oh, well, whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, it is what it is. Like, the other option is we just stay home and we don't see anybody, and you're all get chatting. But
if you're saying you're going to be the black sheep either way,
it's just like, I don't know. I feel like we have a pretty good system.
Favorite comment: road runs both ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's part of the conversation that we've had with our parents, both Katie and I. Like, some point, like, we want our kids to wake up and do Christmas at our house, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. So it's just, I don't know that there's a, what is our saying? It's attention you manage, not attention you solve.
That's right.
So
look at you
just kind of, you live in the mess a little bit, and when it's over, it's over. Mine's food, and not for the reason you would think. Mine's food because I always end up full before I get all the food I want. You know what I mean? Kind of that pelican mindset where like my eyes and my beak are bigger than my stomach.
The pelican mindset?
You ever heard that?
Never in my life.
Yeah, me either.
Really?
Yes.
My grandpa used to say it all the time. He's like, you're like a pelican. You're, at least think of it. Hang on. Hold, please. A wonderful bird is a pelican. His beak can hold more than his belly can. He can hold more in his beak than he can eat in a week, but I don't know how in the heck he can, right? That's kind of the saying there, but my grandpa would say that all the time. So
What if I told you I never heard that either?
yeah, it doesn't shock me. Maybe it's Orlando thing, Chip.
St. Cloud.
We had pelicans. St. Cloud, yeah. All right. That's mine. Carry on. Go ahead. Your last pick of the draft.
So I already gave one away when I said, Elf on the Shelf, like, hate those things.
Oh, yes. I meant to circle back to that.
That was terrible.
Because if you don't start it, here's what I hear. We haven't done it, right? And we don't do it.
Don't do it. We don't do it.
I did 7 years. Do not do it.
Here's what I've heard. Like, it becomes an expectation.
Yes.
And if you get a little tired or you forget to move the elf, the whole castle comes falling down. It's just miserable for everybody. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, pro tip, if you forget to move the elf, blame it on something bad that kid the kid did the day before.
Yep, elf on strike, man.
Just double down on some trauma there. You know what I mean? I like that.
Absolutely.
But then all these parents, like, they get crazy with it.
I've been seeing on my timeline like
it's
sprinkles
insane.
on tape that like runs down into the
Yes.
sink.
It's insane. So I will say when we were in New York a couple of years ago around Christmas, they have the Hanukkah version of Elf on the Shelf. Have you seen those? It's Minch on a bench.
Minch on a bench.
Yeah.
Have you seen Snoop on a stoop?
Goodness. Like Snoop Dogg?
Yeah.
Not Snoopy, but Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's hilarious. But so since Elf on the Shelf's already been thrown out there, I will say last hate this time of year is anything above 75 degrees.
Yeah, amen, brother. I dropped that number to 60.
There's nothing worse on Christmas than wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
For sure.
On Christmas.
Amen. If I have to think, man, I'm gonna get hot in these jeans later, then I don't want it. You know what I mean? I want it to be daggum cold, like Sunday. Sunday it was fantastic. Walking through frost to get the stuff set up, I'm here for it.
Listen, I just left Missouri a couple days ago, and it was
chilly up there.
Oh my gosh, it was wonderful.
I love it. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so we got to get to some serious stuff too. So,
Erin didn't get her last round pick.
oh, you're right. That's right.
But it is kind of a serious thing, so it might be a good segue. I actually had written down that it's the
show notes.
it's
sticky notes.
the struggle of keeping Christmas about Christ and trying to do all the things to give your kids those like memories growing up, like, oh, mom did this and we did this, and Aiden's mom did Elf on the Shelf for 7 years, and I was one of those bougie ones that went over the top. And
Yeah, you were.
I totally was.
Seen the pictures.
That's why I can safely say do not start. But it is a struggle because we know, and our kids I know my kids know why we celebrate Christmas, but you don't want that to get lost in the hustle and bustle of all the other Christmas lights and doing all the things. It's you want to keep that focus on what Christmas really is about.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to mention this because we're kind of moving on, but since you said that, we actually had this conversation yesterday with a group of friends about Elf on the Shelf, and they were asking me and kind of asking the group chat, well, what do y'all do? Do y'all do it? And I was like, I've heard to run from it like the plague because you got to stay up with it. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is kind of the reason we don't, and take this for what it's worth, we had a bunch of conversations with people further along the parenting journey than us, but we don't explicitly encourage the Santa Claus thing. We won't shut it down, but we'll kind of take a questioning posture with it. If they oh, well, is Santa Claus coming? Well, I don't know. What do you think? That kind of thing. Because I think there's just such a tension in there. Granted, I navigated the tension fine. I think when I got older, God's sovereign, there's that whole layer too. But I don't want my kids to grow up and associate fairy tales with the entire season. And I think there's just sometimes it's hard for them. Well, if Santa's not real, is Jesus not real? Or which one's fake? And that kind of thing. So I don't know, that's a layer in there too that gets tricky for parents. And so that's kind of what I had told one of those guys is I don't discourage it, but I don't encourage it either. And I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting topic to dive into. Chip, you're a little bit further. Okay, Mary Beth, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the Santa thing, I have a very recent thing that goes with that. I was just telling Chip the other day that our oldest, Emery, has officially let me know that he knows Santa is not real.
I feel like we need to put an explicit label on this podcast.
That's true. Yeah,
We do, exactly.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Don't listen around
And our
your
bumper.
kids. Yeah.
Because in our bumper Sunday, there was some beans spilled.
It was very tastefully done.
It was.
It's like kids are just like,
So we kind of figured, he's 10, so we knew it was, if he didn't already know that Santa wasn't real, we knew it was coming soon. And he did tell me a couple weeks ago that he knew that Santa was not real, but that was he was going to continue to play along for his younger brother and sister. But it was very much like a non-issue. Like, he wasn't distraught. He didn't care. He knew that it was kind of like just keeping the magic alive for Connor and Lila Kate.
Yeah.
So
that's how. So Aiden, 15 now, he was about Emery's age when, he stopped believing. And that's kind of how I explained it to him, is now like he got to be Santa, help be Santa for his younger brothers. And so, but it didn't seem to affect
his
his belief in Christ. Yeah.
Anything with Jesus.
Right. But I do totally understand that tension, because I myself as a parent have like, oh my gosh, like we put so much emphasis on Santa and the Tooth Fairy and the Bunny Rabbit.
Except for the good gifts. Those don't get a Santa label.
Oh, no.
Let's get a mom and dad.
Santa always gives a mid-level gift. Mom and dad give like the really good gifts. But yeah, I do definitely think there's a tension there. But I do think, I guess depending on how you approach it, it can, like in our instances, that it didn't have any effect on their relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
So I would say, and maybe this is like either a cop-out or unpopular or whatever, how you handle the Christmas season is not going to make up for or undermine how you parent the rest of the year. And so I think that's where there's some liberty in it. Like, if you are doing a good job of living out what it means to be formed like Jesus in your life, then if you celebrate a fat guy in a red suit or Snoop on a stoop, like,
imagine celebrating Snoop Dogg. That's crazy.
I don't know that that's going to undermine what you did the rest of the year. And if you are disconnected from your faith throughout the rest of the year, I don't think it matters how much you talk about Jesus being the reason for the season at Christmas, because at the end of the day, it is a holiday that is messaged a million ways to Sunday by a million different voices. And so what I would say is, don't get overwhelmed by what you are doing or not doing this month. Let's make sure we're doing a really good job everywhere else. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. That's a good segue to the series, because that's the heart behind the series is, at some point, right, somebody didn't do a good enough job. And if you're an adult listening, this is your responsibility now. You haven't done a good enough job kind of walking and stretching yourself in your faith. And that's kind of where Matt got this idea of coloring book Christianity, right? Like, it's been a bunch of stories and maybe even fairy tales up to this point, but I'm not really even sure what the point is. And so, ladies, we have you guys here, and I would love to hear kind of y'all's angle, take, things that stood out, all kinds of different things from this first Sunday in the series. But what do you guys think about where we're headed? Like, did you guys resonate with Sunday's message? Do you feel like it's something that, maybe triggered some, that was true in my childhood, or I see this to be true in that family, or whatever else?
It's okay, Chris can edit this out.
I was just like, oh, that's a long hour.
Yeah, the more they started getting nobody's talking.
Mary Beth looks at me. I'm like, really, Mary Beth? Don't look at me.
Let me ask it this way.
We need Kaci.
Let me ask it this way. When we walk through some of those examples, and I know you listen online, I think, when Matt walked through some of those examples, was it true? Was it like, oh, well, yeah, I did know this story, but really only through the lens of, kind of what I remember from my childhood or whatever else? Did any of that stuff resonate with you, / do you see the tension navigating that with your kids?
I mean, I would say yes, in a sense, because I never really, like, as a kid, teenager, growing up, I knew a lot of Bible stories. I didn't necessarily know or understand how they were all connected to each other until I was an adult.
Yeah.
And really, taking my relationship with Jesus personally, my faith seriously, and kind of finding that stuff out for myself.
That's good.
Yeah. I think I watched online as well. And I think that some of this point, like Matt made, is like, we tend to pretty up the Bible stories, but in reality, when you look at these stories, they're kind of gritty, like there's like real life stuff there, but like especially using Jesus being born as an example, like the manger, it really wasn't a pretty scenario. It's very humbling. But yet, if you look, like we tend to this time of year, we really pretty it up. The animals are there. The little sheep are lying by baby Jesus. And, and there was like a little wooden manger and stuff, but it really wasn't. It was really a lot, just more grittier than that. And so I don't know. That's kind of what stood out to me, is like so many of these stories, it's more than what we pretty it up to be.
Yeah. Well, I think the issue is that having these extras are not problematic in and of themselves. Matter of fact, the one, we were joking about this that kind of blew my mind. We were just really digging through. And granted, I've been a pastor for like 20 years at this point. I didn't realize the star wasn't in the manger scene. Like, I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Like, is this a new translation? What's going on? But it's not. It's now, that said, it's heavily implied, because the three wise men say that we saw the star, it's rising, and that was a sign that Christ had been born. So probably it was there, but we're not explicitly told that it was there at the night of his birth. And here's what I mean by saying it's not problematic. All those things are good things. They're not bad things in and of themselves. The problem becomes when we prefer what we have in our head over reality. And it's not that that's just a deal when it comes to a manger scene. That's a big deal because it affects how we see Jesus as a whole. So when we picture Jesus as a upper middle class white Republican, that's the same issue, right? It's the same thing. We don't see Jesus as a Middle Eastern immigrant born to an unwed teenage mother. Right. That's not what we picture in our head. And so the danger isn't having the fun extra stuff at the nativity that fills it in or whatever. The danger is when we begin to prefer that. And I have heard, I don't know if you've heard this, AJ, not this series, but every year we talk about some of the stuff at Christmas. I've had people point blank come up to me and say, I don't like that. Yeah. That's not what I always learned. I don't like that. And then it's kind of, well, how much of that's true in other places of our life too?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have your preferences, right? And then you have reality. And that's the biggest thing I think that starts to get deconstructed in these conversations. And that's why I ask if you guys found this to be true in your life, because you have these preferences and then you have, okay, well, here's what actually is, right? And at the end of our service Sunday, I came up and I said, all right, well, here's this has probably been true for you, but parents, I have a soft spot for you guys because this is either going to be true or not going to be true for your kids based on how you guys decide to parent. So as moms, kind of having this conversation or listening to this start to the series, have your wheels started turning about how to okay, I don't want this to be true for my kids. How do I avoid this? How do I help them kind of move the needle?
Yes, I think so. So our youngest, his mom and stepdad are not believers. So there's massive tension in that whole scenario. But so he is being introduced now at like older age, 8, 9, 10, to whereas Aiden, mine has literally grown up in the church. He's been going since he was in my belly. So he had a totally different upbringing. And so like introducing our youngest to all of this stuff, I want to teach him, but I want him to understand like the realness of it. It's not just these fairy tale stories. This is like real events that really happened. But I don't want it to be just the coloring book Christianity. I want him to have a real faith. And so, it is kind of tough navigating because like helping them understand the realness of it, and not just the prettied up stuff.
Well, the realness, I think, is the tension there because there's two ditches on either side of this road. One of them is the coloring book Christianity, which is the pretty fluffy that we have in our head. The other is Bible trivia Christianity, which is just, I know the right answers to these questions and I know all the facts, and still does nothing for you in your spiritual formation. And so I think that's connecting it to real life here is the point. And I think that's what you can't miss in this. It's not that we want to raise kids who, AJ mentioned Sunday morning, the test that you guys were given, in college. You're not just trying to raise kids who can pass that test. You're raising kids who can see that their faith impacts how they live their life.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you guys, and this may be putting you on the spot a little bit, do you guys have anything in your routine that says, all right, here are some ways that we're going to start? Because there's a tension there, right? Like if my kid's 5, I don't need to maybe let him know that, like, oh yeah, it was really gory the way that God wiped out the entire earth and they all drowned, and by the way, the animals didn't make it either, right? There's a tension there, like, yeah. When do I start bringing them along? So have you guys...
All right, I got to say this because this is the podcast. This is what we do. So you're talking about like the gory nature of Noah's Ark and all on Sunday morning. And one of my buddies is sitting in the first service, and I see him, and he's like locked in, and I just grab my phone and text him, and I text him, sometimes you got to fight like you're the third monkey in line for Noah's Ark, and maybe it's starting to rain.
That's phenomenal.
That's one of my favorite statements ever.
There is no grittier analogy than that one right there.
You're the third one in line, baby. You got to make a choice.
Oh, man. Yeah, so... You guys,
I know that completely derailed us, but that's what the podcast is for. Just getting stuff out of our brains, right?
Or not even have you thought about it, but thinking about it now, what are some routines that you can put in place to kind of start having these conversations and bringing these things further along than just, all right, this is just
I'm not a mom, but here's one. It hit me that Haddon, our oldest, is 14 now, which means he's probably about Mary's age. And, as we read this, being like, hey, man, that is somebody your age. Like that just kind of blows your mind when you think about that.
I picture Haddon looking back and you say, oh, she's cooked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry about that. He would 100% say she's cooked.
Yeah, she's cooked. Yeah. What are some routines? What are some things that you guys have kind of considered maybe to help bring that conversation along?
So I know for us, every morning, on our way to school, we'll say our morning prayers, and I'll turn on a podcast, and it's always a Christian podcast. I think I shared it with Mary Beth and Kaci.
Not this one, unless they're ready to know the truth.
Yeah. No, not this one. But it's a perfect amount of time to listen to, and then on the way to school, and then it'll ask a few questions about that, whatever they're talking about in the Bible that morning. And so just doing that, and the boys will always have questions about like little things, and then even like throughout the day. Like if we do something, we just always, I try to just remind them, we always bring it back to this is why we do this. If they have any questions, or just give them those little reminders throughout the day of why we do things, or this is how we are being like Jesus. For instance, whenever we did the Impact Sunday and having the boys there, just play, even they were just playing with the kids, and they didn't really, they were just having fun, but just showing them this is why we're serving food for them. This is why we're out here playing on the bounce house with these people, and just loving on them, because they might not have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving. They might not have any food to eat, and just things like that. Just showing them this is how you can be.
Yeah. I think the why is huge. I think it's an underrated piece of the equation. I think a lot of parents get annoyed by the why, but I have personally seen it to be a much bigger deal than we want to make it, because I think as they start to, the why is the spiritual formation piece in a lot of ways. Like if I just tell you, hey, go and use this behavior, but there's no why behind it, then what I've done is I've modified their behavior, but I've never shown them the reason why we modify our behavior, which I think is phenomenal on your end. Do this real quick. What's the name of that podcast? And we'll drop it in the show notes or you just look for it. And whenever you find it, God's Big Story.
I think.
Okay. We'll have the Deucer hunt it down and see if he can drop in the show notes.
God's Big Story.
I love it. You were going to say something, Chip.
What was that?
I don't know. Maybe not. That's good. What else? What are some other things some other ways that you guys have said, okay, I want to try to help move the ball down the field here?
So kind of along the same lines with what she was saying is making sure that we are the ones introducing them to a lot of these, quote, Bible stories, and frequently, not so that they have the knowledge, but that is important that they have the knowledge, but then also leaving space for them to ask questions about it, and then honestly answer the question as age appropriately as you can, depending on their age.
See, that's the kicker.
That's the hard part.
That is.
The Virgin Mary, and
it's hard, but
imagine reading Luke chapter 1. She had not known sexual relations with a man.
What do you mean? What does that mean? Is that in God's Big Story?
Right.
That in the podcast,
Right. Yeah. So just leaving space for them to ask questions, because kids are very inquisitive, and if you leave them space to ask questions, they're going to ask you questions.
Yeah.
And then also, as your kids get older, and when, for example, Emery is saved. And so we actually just recently had a conversation he played baseball for the first time this year, and he was way more competitive than I actually expected him to be. And we were on the way home, and he was frustrated because of some calls from the umpires.
Is it baseball if you're not?
Yeah.
Say welcome to baseball.
Yeah, he was not only from some calls, but also from some of the behavior from some kids on the opposing team, and just some things that we,
Is it baseball if it's not? Yeah.
Yeah, things that we debriefed on the way home. But it was, I try and look for opportunities to do things like this to remind him who he is and why he's different. And we got to have the conversation of, you have the Holy Spirit, so you don't have to react that way. You don't have to act that way. You can choose to act a different way. Yeah. And because you have the Holy Spirit, you have the power in yourself to do that through the Holy Spirit. And so we were able to use just like a real life moment to bring him back to the why he's different.
My coach has the Holy Spirit. He's out there dog cussing up and kicking dirt all over the plate. No, that's good. That's phenomenal. I think it's a good real life.
When he goes, my coach is the pastor, and he's out there kicking dirt.
I think
does he have the Holy Spirit?
We did say in the conversation that we don't do this perfectly every time.
Sure.
Amen.
And everybody makes mistakes, but he can remember that going forward. That
I would like to clarify on the podcast that I've never cussed an umpire or a child.
Allegedly. Erin, what about you? You have anything that you're like, man, I feel this tension, or here's how I navigate it?
Well, it's kind of hard. So Aiden, especially, he's a hardcore teenage boy right now. So, there's a little bit of that retreat to himself kind of stuff going on right now, which everybody promises me that they do come circle around. But so it's kind of hard. I just try to check in with him, like every once in a while, like I'll go in his room, or I'll like at dinner, like over the last couple of years, we've really tried to make it a point to eat dinner at the table as family, to have these moments, and not get lost in the craziness. But I really just try to check in with him, because especially like in high school, they're just hit with so many differing, at least when they're smaller, you can kind of control a little more their friend groups and stuff like that. But as he's gotten older, I just try to check in. I try to see what's going on in his life, see what's going on in his friends' lives, and different scenarios that are coming up. And one of the biggest things we always talk about is just loving people, even if they disagree, because bless high schoolers, they're going to find something to disagree about. So, I think that with him, that's how I navigate right now, is because he has kind of retreated into his teenage boy phase. But like, I just mentally, like, just check in with him mentally, like, hey, where you at? Like, hey, have you, if you're struggling, have you prayed about it? Like, have you talked to God about it? And then just situations with people, like, hey, we always remind, like, hey, be kind and love other people, even if you're mad at them, even if they're disagreeing with you, like, just trying to remind him to be like, try to be like Jesus, even when it's really difficult.
Yeah.
So
I tell you what was out of nowhere for me with the teenager age is understanding that it's not that you just have to ground your kids in truth, but maybe it's in this part of the world, it's probably everywhere. You also have to ground them in grace, right? Because it's not like, oh, you got to watch out for all this, stuff that's way out there that we want to protect our kids against. You also got to protect them against what legalism looks like and what self-righteousness looks like, and be like, hey, man, it's never okay to hate someone, even if they're different than you, and didn't see that coming, right? Because when you're thinking parenting your kid to follow Jesus, you're thinking kind of about keeping them on the moral straight and narrow, but that's not it, right? It's not the morality behind the story. It's not, moralistic therapeutic deism. It's actually, hey, you are to look and live like Jesus. That's truth, but it's also grace. It's also not, the other ditch on the other side of the road. And I didn't see that coming. I didn't think about that, but that's been one of the things. So you talk about influences. It wasn't the bad influences that we were having to course correct with. It was the, quote, good influences we were having to course correct with and saying, hey, I know that's a good kid. He's also being a self-righteous jerk right now. That's why we don't act like that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and I think this is why the why is so important, because if it's behavior modification, then they don't get the whole picture. It's just truth. It's no grace, right? Or anything like that. And I was literally talking to one of my buddies on the phone yesterday, and I will not out him because this is that conversation. But he said, yeah, we just, one, there were several things that came up, and it was like enlightening because it was this half of the conversation. One, he doesn't want to go to UF because when we went to visit one time, he smelled marijuana there. And so now the whole thing's out, right? Two, he doesn't like this football team anymore because they engaged in a fight. And so everything is looking through the lens of ultra hyper truth, not understanding in the scope of the world, God's creation and brokenness. You're going to have these things, and you got to figure out how to navigate them with both grace and truth, and they need to be a part of the equation. But I think that's where the why starts to come into the equation as you parent your kids. You're teaching them holistically, not just what a lot of parents have done, which is behavior modification. And there's a sweet spot, because very seldom do I find parents on the road as opposed to in either ditch, like you're mentioning.
I want to be very clear. I will modify the heck out of my child's behavior, if it needs to be done. But it's the why behind it. Like, look, I'm going to modify your behavior whether you understand the why or not, but I'm going to try to help you understand the why too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you're 18, you hope that they understand the why, because you can't modify their behavior anymore.
That's exactly what I was about to say, is you can modify it all you want while they're in your house. But as soon as they are out,
I think you can modify it even after they're out of the house if you do it right.
Get off my cell phone plan.
Yeah, no, it was, so the story is my grandma, my mom's mom, would cook a roast, like not on Thanksgiving, but like around the holidays, she'd always cook a roast. Mm-hmm. And every time she cooked the roast, she would cut the end off of it. And it was like, finally, like one of her daughters, I was like, why do you cut the end off your roast? She's like, I don't know. My mom always did. And then we found out that it was because her mom had a short pan that the roast normally wouldn't fit in. So she cut the end off of it to make it fit in the pan. And so, I mean, behavior modified.
Yeah.
No idea the
for
why
no reason.
it,
Yeah.
But she kept doing it the rest of her life.
Do you guys, let me ask you this too. So you have the why, and you have, I'm gonna give you guys benefit of the doubt here. I'm assuming that you're doing it the right way, right? But I'm sure you have people in your lives.
Hope you're assuming for them and not me, big guy.
I'm sure you have people in your lives that are like, hey, I would just rather that, hopefully Mary Beth Kids Church fixes this. Have you seen that a bunch where like you see your friends or people hoping that somebody else has this conversation for their kids so that they don't have to?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think, because even as a parent, sometimes like those conversations can be like really intimidating if you feel like you're not confident in like sharing the Bible with your kids, because what if they have a question I don't know the answer? Some people, I mean, even me, there's been conversations where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel like I'm prepared for that conversation. But like for sure, for all the years I volunteered, and then when I came on staff, I was in kid ministry, and I do think that a lot of parents would much rather push that conversation off on somebody else because they just don't necessarily feel equipped. Not that you guys are doing a bad job trying to equip us here, sure. but they just don't feel confident in how to handle that conversation or all those conversations. So I definitely think it's a thing. And I mean, I'm sure Mary Beth can attest, being in Kidman now, that there's lots of parents.
We get them for max an hour 4 times a month if they come every single Sunday, which is not the case for 90% of the kids, that come. And that is not nearly enough time.
Yeah.
Not nearly enough time.
If Sunday morning church don't fix you, Sunday morning kids church don't fix your kids.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was just thinking, is that a lot of adults who attend church, probably all the Bible, Jesus that they're getting throughout the week is on Sunday at church. And so they're probably expecting the same thing for their kids when they bring their kids. And it's just not enough.
Yeah, let me throw an extra one in there too. If you miss, right, you watch online, right? I can go back and watch online and listen to the podcast. Here's the problem. We don't have online kids church.
Right.
When you miss, you might catch up online. Your kids don't. So,
yeah. Yeah, I asked that question pointedly because I think, one, a lot of people do struggle with it too. I think it's a good check for yourself. Like I got to get this figured out, because the reality is, if you're a parent, whether you like it or not, whether you thought you signed up for it or not, whether you think you're doing it well or not, you are the primary spiritual influence in your kid's life. If you're doing a good job, that's a good thing. If you're doing a bad job, you're still a spiritual influence. You're just not being a good spiritual influence. And so it's such an important piece of the puzzle. And I think for a lot of parents, it's easier to just say, well, I mean, we see it on Wednesday nights, we see it on Sunday mornings. I'm just going to take my kid over there, and they're going to try to fix them in an hour, and then I'll get them back. And then they look up and they say, and as they question their faith and they don't have the hard conversations and they don't dig in, their kids look up and they're like, they're kind of having the same powwow around the table. Well, I've just always cut the end off my roast. You know what I mean? I don't know why. I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing that. And the kid, kind of in the analogy we used yesterday, they show up to college and they're like, well, I don't want to cut the end off my roast. That seems stupid. I don't have a good why behind this. And they kind of deconstruct, walk away, whatever. And so I think it's an important piece of the equation to remember, whether you like it, want it or not, you're the primary spiritual influence in your kids' lives.
Home Depot Church, right?
Yep.
You can do it. You're the only one who can do it, but we'll help.
Yep.
I was going to say, that's too, like, it's not only about Sunday mornings, but like having your kids see how you react to things during the week, where if it's like stress from getting them ready for school in the morning and trying to get out the door, or someone cut you off in the grocery store parking lot, just seeing how
step on toes now, Kaci.
seeing how you react to things and how you handle things, as just not on Sunday mornings just because you're at church, but just throughout the week, and just showing that godly resemblance or role model to them is very important, I feel like, for the kids. That way they know how they should be all the time, not just on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want this for families. We want this for our families. What does it look like for you guys? Do you have a routine that you try to consistently keep in front of your family, that you and your husbands use for your kids, or that you use for your household, to kind of help them know, okay, this is what it looks like. This is our normal family, biblically lived routine. Do you guys have one of those that you incorporate? Because I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of parents that are listening and saying, yeah, everything you just talked about, that's me, and I need some help, and I need a routine, and I understand my problem, but I don't know what next step to take. So I think having an organic conversation about, like, well, here's what that looks like in my house would be incredibly helpful for them, if you guys have any tips.
So I do not have a routine because I'm a very non-routine person. I actually do not like routine, which is one reason I love holidays, is because everybody's on break and there is no routine.
Just free for all. I love it.
Yes. But I think for me, because there's not any one particular thing other than like our bedtime routine is pretty consistent. We pray every night. I always ask them each individually, is there anything particular you want to pray about? And, I get consensus from all of them, and then we pray.
Right.
But so other than that, I think more so just like the culture of your home, where it's just an understood thing that this is how we live our lives and this is why we live our lives this way, and that everything in our home and in our family, we do our very best to have Jesus as the center point of that. And I look for opportunities and situations where I can point them back to it and explain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. I think, one, I would say bedtime is probably the one time you can nail them down with everything going on. Yes. So that is a routine. And a lot of parents, I think, maybe overlook bedtime, or how quickly can I get through bedtime, because this is my one time in the day to get some R&R from you. So I want to get you to sleep before I go do the next thing. So yes, even though you don't like routine, I think bedtime is an easy spot to even have just a simple.
It's also where your kids want to engage the most, because they're looking for every opportunity to not go to sleep. So that's when they're going to ask questions. That's when they're going to talk to you about what's going on at school, what's going on with their friends, all that.
You can read those 3 Bible stories.
Exactly.
They don't need just one.
Yeah, that's good. Who else?
I think that you said there's something that we don't need to blow past, and that is culture beats strategy every time. You can have the best strategy for how you're going to do this as a parent, but if you don't have a culture to do it in, it's not going to matter, because culture is going to beat strategy every single time.
Yeah, that's right.
Because your kids are kids, and they're always going to mess up, and they're always going to make mistakes. And us adults, we're parents, we're just people too. We're always going to mess up and make mistakes. But when you have something you can always bring it back to, of like, no, this isn't right. This isn't what we need to be doing right now, and this is why we don't need to be doing it.
The why, yeah. Culture is the why. Yeah. The culture you establish is you living out the why. Phenomenal. I love it. What else? Any other routines for you guys Erin, Kaci, you guys have anything that's like a part of your normal day that does a good job of maybe establishing culture?
Erin, you're very routine. You've got to have something.
I'm like
Surely
the
there's
worst.
something.
I was hoping you wouldn't say anything. No, I am the uber routine person. But I will say, like this whole podcast, I'm like, well, I'm failing right now. No, I think also when I talk about Aiden a lot because he's with us all the time. But when Aiden was younger and bedtime was more of his bedtime now, he goes to bed after I do. So it's changed a little bit now. Right. Yeah. I literally knock on his door and tell him good night. I'm going to
You
bed.
should have him read you a Bible story every
There
day.
you go.
Yeah. Come tuck me in, buddy.
A Bible study.
Right. I need my bedtime story. So when he was younger, absolutely, bedtime was the time for us. You know, he had like storybook Bibles and stuff growing up. And so he loved to read a story in the storybook Bibles. And we would always be very intentional about praying before he went to bed. And but I think now we've definitely moved more into the culture in our house and who do we owe like all of our thanks for all our blessings. You know, we are very blessed. And then how do we use those blessings to bless others? Because Jesus didn't bless us just because, just for us to like keep all the blessings to ourselves. And so I will say it has definitely moved into heavy on the culture of our home instead of the set routines per se. And just, occasionally, like when he oh man, I got like this test coming up. Okay, well, hey, make sure you pray about it. Like, it's not so much me sitting down with him at his bed at 11:30 at night, and say, okay, well, let's say our prayers. It's more the culture and like, hey, reminding him like, hey, have you done a page in that little Bible study book I gave you, like that kind of stuff, because he is getting older. So you like, he is kind of, becoming his own person. And so it's more just me like reminding him, keeping that culture instead of so much of routine of sitting down with him.
Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah, it's good. Chip, I think I would love for you to speak to this because I've seen you do this with Haddon. I think culture is good. I think part of culture, it has to, like, routine is a part of culture. Like what you do is gonna have a part in that. And so what I love about what you've started doing with your oldest son is that you have an intentional time that you go with him. And so I think to study, I think this is such a huge piece because at some point he's going to stay up later than you or whatever, right? At some point he's going to be,
we're there.
Yeah, at some point he's going to be on his own. And so you're not going to be knocking on his door in the morning saying, hey, let's get up and go do Bible study. It's going to be his choice to get up and go read his Bible and spend time with the Lord. So maybe just kind of share some of what you've been trying to do as he's walking into young adulthood as a 14-year-old.
Yeah, so what we do is on Monday mornings before, he goes to school, we load up and go to Panera and just do a little bit of Bible study. I want to say a little bit of Bible study, like if we get 15 minutes, it's good. And really just kind of let him ask questions. I'll ask questions like, hey, do you understand what this means? Tell me what this means. Why is this important? How does this connect with, whatever? Explain this to me. And just get him engaging with the scriptures, thinking through the scriptures like, hey, I'm not just reading it to read it. I'm trying to understand it. But when we say routine, it's like the plan. It's not, hey, we can't ever deviate from the plan. So we're recording this on a Monday. We didn't go this morning. And it was 100% because we're coming off Thanksgiving break. Knew it was going to be crazy around the house this morning. So last night when he said, hey, are we going to Panera tomorrow? I said, well, we'll play it by ear. We'll see what happens.
No.
And it was because I knew that, everybody was running late this morning. I didn't even try to get to the office, on the normal time this morning. So it is that you have a plan that you're trying to work, right? And part of that plan is routine, but it's trusting that, hey, it's not that if I miss, it's the end of the world. It's that if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail, right? You know what I mean?
It's classic.
So you've got to have the plan that is the default, but that doesn't mean that you can't ever move away from it. So that's kind of the thing. The plan is every Monday we go. Doesn't mean that we go every Monday. It just means that we have to cancel to not.
Yeah. No, it's good. I like that because I think what you're doing with him is you're setting him up to at least be able to make an educated decision one day. Like if he wants to do it, great. He knows how to do it. If he doesn't want to do it, that's on him, and you can't control that at that point.
Yeah.
But
in fairness, the teenage years are waning my confidence in his ability to make an educated anything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time, guys. Interesting time, okay?
Maybe when he gets
Looking forward to it.
maybe when he gets his frontal lobe at 26, he'll bounce back.
Yeah, he is going to die if he ever hears this on the podcast, so good thing he probably won't.
Because he's finding out about Santa Claus, or?
So right before Thanksgiving break, there's this girl that
Oh, God. You got like this part.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
She's liked him, and he's kind of liked her. Haddon is super shy about everything, right? So Friday before Thanksgiving break, he asked for her phone number. And we know this because Chasen, who's 11 and is, let's say, squirrely, sees him asking her and runs to Leanne's classroom. Mom, he's asking for her phone number, right? And so he's telling us later about the conversation. He's talking to her, and this is Haddon. So, do you like me? Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
So, welcome to teenage years, everybody.
It was pain everywhere. Man, Chip, you need to teach him a routine and culture of spitting game in your house. It sounds like you haven't done that.
Look, here's how you do it. You find a good-looking girl from a good home who's homeschooled, and then she doesn't know any better.
You're setting him up for failure by having him get this public school chick's number. Then
I found mine. That's all I'm saying.
Tell this chick sorry. She's already set up for failure. She needs to go get homeschooled. Well, we'll kind of round out with this. So obviously a routine is good. Obviously culture is good. But obviously it gets derailed in the hustle and bustle of life. So what are some things that you guys try to do to protect the culture, to protect the routine as it inevitably gets derailed? Because there's a spiritual element to this too, right?
Check the phones.
Yeah, it's good. Check the phones is good.
Parental controls.
If your kids have
will
phones.
derail the culture because it's like a subculture going on that you don't even know about.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So
I mean,
we have a culture where he does not think twice if we grab his phone. Like it's not like that's my phone. It's no, like my wife gets my phone, I get her phone, we get his phone. Like phones are not a private subculture.
Right.
He gets your phone?
No. She gets my phone. I get her phone. We get his phone. But yes, they get our phone sometimes too, but he doesn't like check up on me or anything like that.
Yeah. Dad? All right.
Why are you playing so much chess, Dad? Shut up, Dad. Mind your business.
Check your phone is a good one. And I may be, I don't know where I'm at in this demographic breakdown, but I'm the youngest one at the table right now. And I remember not wanting my parents to have my phone because it was its own subculture. I'm not too far removed from that. So that's a good piece of advice. What else?
I don't know if this goes along with that, but it was something I thought of when Chip was talking earlier, not about the girl situation, but
that was just funny. It had no benefit to us at all.
But something, it's kind of like a hack that I've figured out, a spiritual hack, like a temperature check on Emery, is sometimes when we're talking about different things, relating to his faith or just going over Bible stories, reading Bible stories or whatever, or a principle, I'll have Emery explain it to the twins.
That is a hack.
So
solid.
I'll have Emery explain it to the twins so I can chime in when needed, and I can also see where Emery might need some clarification.
Which is even more phenomenal because this is the reason we do small groups the way we do it at the Orchard. It's not a lecture. It's a conversation around a circle because the adult learning theory says if you say it, you retain it. And if one person's talking in that small group, whatever, it's that class, then that means nobody else is retaining it, but one person's going to get a lot of the information. So that's a phenomenal hack with Emery. I love that. What else? Any other ways that you guys kind of protect the routine, culture, things that, some guardrails, I guess, if you will, that you have set in place?
I think it's kind of like I mentioned earlier, checking in with him, like having conversations, asking him. It's so interesting, actually, as your kids get older and they start really becoming their own person, having their own thoughts. I like to check in with Aiden, I'm so glad the election's over. But like during that time, I wanted to see what are his thoughts about these kind of things, like where do you land?
How does this affect my Christmas?
I thought that was a good idea until I asked.
Right. Well, yeah. And so I do, like, I'll just, hey, what's going on? Like, how are you guys? How are your friends? Like, just checking in with him because he is in that period of kind of like withdrawal from mom, and and just kind of, he's got his friends. I mean, he's taking drumming lessons, not because his mom told him it was a good idea. It's because his friends told him it was a good idea.
Suicide mission.
Right. So, yeah.
Imagine drums in your house.
Listen.
Could not be me.
That's what we do.
His words coming from Aaron, who is the oldest parent at the table right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Chip Parker. You're 6 months older than me. Thank you.
I don't know about that.
You've crossed the 40 threshold. I have not yet.
Hey, your hair has a lot more color than his.
Listen, that's the truth. But yeah, I check in with Aiden a lot, probably more than he wishes I did. But even if he doesn't have much to say at the time, just letting him know, like, I'm here. I'm wanting to know. Like, I want to know you. I want to know what's going on in your life, even if that drives him crazy. But when he does have something come up, he's quick to come and just word vomit everywhere about something that's going on. So
good. That's good.
Well, I think something that is super, super important to keep in mind, because this is what I'm running into as a pastor, not a parent, over and over and over and over and over and over again right now. Quit focusing on parenting your kids as kids and realize they're going to be adults a lot longer than they're going to be kids. And you need to have a healthy relationship with them then.
Yep.
Because I have run into parents who, we watched all the videos, we read all the books, we did everything right, except learn how to let them go and be their own people and not have to be in their life 24/7, and it just goes off the rails when they grow up. And so all of this is good. All of this is important. Just always keep in mind that you're going to have a relationship with an adult a lot longer than you have a relationship with a toddler or an elementary student or a teenager. You're going to have a relationship with an adult a lot longer, and make sure you're building to that.
It's good. It's good. Kaci, you're going to say something?
I am just taking all this in because with my oldest, I'll try to check in with him, but he just never wants to open up and talk about it. So the times that he does, it's really special. And I'm like, okay, we got to drop all of our stuff. Let's have this talk.
He's talking to me.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
He's a lot like me. So we just, whenever he's ready to talk, I'm just try to make sure. And usually it's always at the worst times. We're trying, and we're in a hurry to do something or get somewhere. So it's just, I'm just taking all of this in because that's good to and do all that.
Absolutely. I think, and what's important is you drop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I've caught myself doing it. I'm not perfect, but sometimes the things that he finally wants to tell me about are something that I could care less. His favorite, musician just dropped an album unexpectedly, and he was
That's
so,
crazy.
but if you got to make yourself available for those conversations, especially if you have one that's not a big talker. You drop it. It does not matter what's going on. I try to if my phone's in my hand, I try to put my phone down, listen to him, engage, try to come up with some kind of something to offer into the conversation.
Like me with my in-laws during the holidays. Just driving around the room.
So, and I think that helps them understand that you are a safe person to come to because if they'll come and talk to you about their, the new album dropping, and you stop everything and you actually engage with them, even in stuff that doesn't matter.
Interested in,
right. That they'll come to you, and you keep that line of communication open. And
that's really good. I want to clarify real quick. I said in-laws. I meant cousins, aunts, things like that. Not my in-laws. I love my in-laws. Great.
Good word. Yeah. I'm just sitting here listening to them talk about, kids who don't ever really want to talk and open up. And I'm thinking, couldn't be me because my kids won't shut up. Yeah. Guys, I need a minute. I need you to chill. Okay. Yeah. I need you to just stop for just a minute.
I want to also add this. This is, you guys are half the equation. Okay. You are one part of the family unit. And I didn't dive into this, and we won't dive into this because maybe we bring them back on for the dad cast portion of this, but
that would be sick.
Yeah. I'm saying that to say, and for the moms listening, and I know there's, single parent households and you're fighting an uphill battle in a lot of ways because you don't have help, but don't underestimate the other half of the dynamic. And that's a conversation we'll have with the dads at some point. But if you feel I can't get through to him, there's probably a moment where your helpmate is supposed to come in and do that or whatever else. So don't get overwhelmed if you're listening to this. Know that God has orchestrated the family unit the way that he has. And so there's probably some variables in there we're not really hitting on. that maybe even in many ways are more impactful than everything we've already talked about with you moms, because I think if the dad has it figured out, the statistics jump drastically to your kid getting it figured out. So another conversation for another day, but yeah.
Oh, goodness. Sometimes I'll be like, why did you ask your dad that? You should have came and asked me. The answer you're getting from your dad is not what I wanted you to know.
Look, dads know how to keep it real, okay? Keep it we have got to do a Dadcast episode now because Cameron needs to come on here and defend himself.
Absolutely. I love Cameron. Cameron would be the great guy. He would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal.
I'll be honest, I want to hear Chad on here.
Yeah.
That would be phenomenal.
Chad,
too.
Brady, Cameron, and then Aaron's husband.
Jesse,
you're not getting Jesse on this podcast. I hate to break it to you.
We could bribe Jesse.
Ooh, I don't know.
We could bribe Jesse. He's a bribable guy.
and he is a bribable guy. But he's a great guy too. I love Jesse. Jesse's awesome.
He's a good one.
Let me round out this way. So we'll kind of wrap this thing up. And I would say this: we are doing Jingle Jam in all three cities, not at all three locations. All three locations will be putting it on in all three cities: Lake City, Live Oak, Branford. And if you're looking for a foot in the door to start the spiritual conversation, this could be a phenomenal first step that you take to getting the conversation going, especially if you don't come to the Orchard and you just kind of listen for whatever reason. But Mary Beth...
We need to know who you are if you don't come to the Orchard and you're listening to this.
Fletcher Hallett. My buddy Fletcher listens every
Fletcher,
week.
you're a good dude, man.
He listens every week. He lives in St. Augustine. So he's actually asked us for an Orchard in St. Augustine. Chip, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm just saying don't ask Leanne because she's convinced God's calling her to the beach at some point in her life.
Some point, brother. Mary Beth, why don't you kind of vision cast for us real quick? Put you on the spot. Vision cast Jingle Jam. What's it going to be? What does it look like? All that kind of stuff.
So Jingle Jam is a Christmas show, but it's an interactive show. So there's lots of fun and games where we're interacting with the audience and the kids in the audience. But then there is also a very pointed, serious time where we share the Christmas story, Jesus' birth.
I love it. And then what's happening after we do all that?
At each location's Jingle Jam, there is going to be an after party.
I love it. And what's going to be at the after party?
It will differ.
There will be snacks.
There will be snacks at all of them.
There will be decorations.
There will be decorations.
How much does this thing cost?
I don't know.
Not on our end. Like, how much does it cost for somebody to come?
Oh, my God. I'm like, I don't know.
Do not give our price. I'm talking about...
I was about to say,
how much does it cost?
Aaron?
I'm pretty sure I've lost count where we're at. Yeah.
It's a free event, but it is a ticketed event. So you'll see flyers around, or the Facebook events will have a link where you can get your ticket, but it is a free ticket.
It's even the very first thing you're going to see on our website. You go to our website, you'll see the Jingle Jam page that will give you the event page for every location, and you can order tickets depending on which one you're going to go to. The one thing I would say is do not try to get tickets to all three events because it's going to be the same show three times, and we do have limited seats. And so, come, bring friends, but unless you're bringing different friends each time, let's try to keep some seats for people who haven't seen it yet.
Yes, and it's also incredibly helpful if you know you're coming to get a ticket. Do that for us.
We can't guarantee you're going to have a seat.
Yeah, so let us know. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a really cool thing to do in our communities. I know my kids will probably be there, and they will probably love it because they love even the ones that we've done at the church. And
prizes.
So, yeah.
There should be prizes.
There's going to be prizes that you can win.
Yeah, how much do those
Beth
cost?
and I may have collabed on some awesome games that you get to play.
Hey, listen, don't sleep on Chip's game selection, brother. Chip, staff Christmas party 2 days before we do it in Lake City. The day that they do it in Live Oak is our staff Christmas party day, the 17th. Yeah. So I'm fired up. That's the one thing. That's what keeps you coming back, baby. Chip's banger of an office Christmas party. We love it.
Nobody works at the church for any other reason except an invite to the staff Christmas party.
We love it. We love it. We're here for it.
It just is what it is.
I love it. Anything that you guys would add to the conversation? Anything that you're like, man, I meant to say this. I wanted to say this. It's been burning in my soul.
There was one thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Go Gators.
Go Gators, baby. Are we back?
We're back.
We're back. All right. I love it. Nothing. You guys are good. You don't want to add a chomp, Aaron?
No.
All right, cool. Well, we will catch you guys next week. Don't forget to check the show notes for that podcast. And then don't forget to go to the website and get your tickets if you're coming to Jingle Jam. See ya. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow in this journey of faith and embrace community. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website and stay connected. Your questions are what make this podcast a dynamic and enriching experience. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who may find value in these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you and will help you bring Sunday's message into your week ahead. Keep the conversation alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.